Hello and welcome to the Read to Know podcast, where the goal is to actually remember what you read so then you can better apply it to your life. On this podcast, we go through a book one chapter at a time, and then we actually practice remembering what we've read. So if you want to follow along, we're currently working our way through Bob Goff's book, Dream Big. I'm Zach Brown, and my friend Chris Yarber is joining me to help discuss and break down this book. Also, if you're on Apple Podcasts, it would be huge if you left a rating and review for us. It would help out a ton. If you're not on Apple Podcasts, no worries. Just send this to a friend who might be interested. Anyway, thanks again for listening and enjoy the conversation. Chris, we've talked about this on the podcast before, I think once. And I don't know if anyone listening is even interested or cares at all, but we're both interested in this. We actually talked about this a little bit this morning. But turns out that maybe the best conference in college football might not be playing this year. And when I say the best conference, I mean Big Ten.
Well, I was just about to correct you on that and saying actually the ACC as of right now is playing. But you're right, the Big Ten and the Pac-12, I think that's the only two, are not playing until the spring, which makes you wonder what the heck is, the bowl games and the championships supposed to look like, because you can't have, college football without a championship.
Right. What is this season even going to look like without, some of the greatest college football teams ever to grace the field?
I know.
I'm talking about the Ohio State Buckeyes, of course. My favorite team, Ohio State. Here's the thing. I almost was okay if there was no college football at all, because then I'd just be like, yeah, that's a bummer, but hey, I get my Saturdays back this fall, right? You know what I mean? There's that. And then it's like almost worse though that Ohio State's not playing and everyone else is. Right. That's worse. Like, you might at that point, like, I'm just like, might as well just cancel all of college football. Like, what's the point? Like, because I'm gonna see all these games on, I'm gonna be like, oh, my team's not playing. There's everyone else. My team's not there.
Right. You feel like because your team's not playing, you can't talk about college football around other people. And I think I saw, what was it?
Well, it's the feeling of, the worst week of the season is your bye week, because you don't get to. You're like, all right, football week, and then like, oh, they're on a bye this week. That's what it's going to be like every single week,
right? And I honestly think I saw, and I could be wrong on this date, but I think this is the first time Ohio State hasn't played in the fall since like 1889 or something like that. It's been a long time, and through a couple world wars.
No, yeah, someone sent me that like actually. Let me pull it up.
Okay.
Because this is interesting. Okay, 2020 will be the first calendar year without an Ohio State football game since 1889.
1889,
yeah. Buckeyes played through the flu pandemic of 1918 and 2 world wars, but they won't play this fall.
Right.
They played through the flu in 1918, and that was pretty intense.
Yeah, but not this fall.
So I don't know. Hopefully, I'm holding out that they change their mind before the season. I don't know when the season is supposed to start, but it's pretty soon, I think.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be. I wouldn't say now, but just about
pretty soon. Yeah. So I'm hoping that changes around before it's too late, but
we'll see.
I don't know. Could not happen. But yeah. I'm holding out.
Right.
So at least, hey, Florida State's playing, so you still got that to look forward to.
Yeah, as of right now, yeah, they're still playing, which this year was going to be interesting because it's the first year with a new head coach. So we were looking forward to seeing how that was going to play out.
It's a rebuilding year.
Yeah, it's a rebuilding year. It's been a rebuilding couple years, but we're building. Hopefully,
right. You'll get there.
We'll get there.
All right. Okay. Anyway, enough college football talk.
Right.
But if you want to get in, if anyone listening wants to get in on the college football talk, like we said,
tell us your favorite team.
Yeah, we don't mind hearing from you guys. At Read to Know Pod, all social platforms, or readtoknowpod@gmail.com. Any of those will work. Anyway, getting into this chapter, give it a quarter twist. We discover and build our ambitions in installments. And so, really, this is kind of, again, we're in part 4 here, clearing the path. This chapter, again, is one of those, like, he has a lot of kind of 1-2 chapters that are very closely related in the thought that he's talking about here. So they're very closely related. This is closely related to the previous chapter, which is talking about limiting beliefs.
Right.
And so now we're talking about launching beliefs and how, it's kind of the opposite of limiting beliefs, is that someone can, this can be something that someone has kind of spoken into you, but you can also do this for other people. And that's why he brings it up. He says people like his grandparents growing up, really, thought the world of him and responded to him in a way that built him up and made him feel respected, loved, and heard. And just like limiting beliefs can be carried with us through the years, those launching beliefs, as he calls them, can be carried with us through the years as well.
Right. Yeah. What I found so beautiful about the story with his grandparents in this chapter is because they believed he was absolutely amazing. That came across in their behavior and the way that they treated him. And because of that, he believed that as well. Just by the words that they spoke to him, just by, of course, the attitude they carried when they interacted with him. And that's how impactful, we can be to other people, and how we can have these launching beliefs, again, like you stated, that only do it for us, but do it for other people as well. So I think that's a very beautiful thing about this chapter, especially after reading such a convicting one as we did yesterday with the limiting beliefs. I like that he touches on here these launching beliefs in this chapter.
Right. Yeah. And not only are these things that can be that we can have in our own lives, but we can be that for someone else.
Right.
And he makes a point of that. We can be the thing that someone remembers years later because we were so attentive and involved and engaged in someone else's life that they then had such a positive reaction to, that they carry it with them and they believe in themselves more because of our actions.
Right. Exactly.
And that's what he's getting at. That's what's powerful about this. And that's when he gets into, kind of the next section of this chapter, talking about things that you would want to change in your life and kind of move around. And he says, give it a quarter twist, kind of just rearranging. Again, talking about things that you do that don't seem very significant, but can make a significant difference down the line. And with that being one of the biggest things is just staying engaged, right?
Yes,
kind of cranking up the engagement level to friends, family, faith, as he says.
Right.
And that engagement will then even breathe into other people, launching beliefs that they might not have had before.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of this, and I love how he says, give it a quarter twist, because he uses in this chapter an illustration of people who go down to wine cellars and stuff like that. And of course, you have all these bottles down there, and what they do is they give those a quarter of a twist so that it moves the wine in there, so it doesn't just stick to the bottle or anything like that. Which, if you think about that movement, it's not a lot of movement, it's not a lot of change, and that's exactly what some of us need to do in order to get on the right track to our ambitions and our dreams. Is we sometimes don't have to make as such dramatic changes as we need to make. And in fact, there are certain things that we need to hold on to. And as you mentioned, he mentions in the chapter that three things, we need to hold on to is faith, family, and friends. Those things we need to cling on to and engage with. Other things that we no longer need to engage with in order to launch us forward, we have to just make a small change. Sometimes those changes are not as big or as difficult as we would believe them to be.
Right. Yeah. And just making those small adjustments can go a long way, as he's talking about, and oftentimes can play out in ways that we maybe not even fully expect. But it takes, again, intentionality with figuring this out too.
Yes.
You have to figure out what is going on in my life that maybe needs a little twist. What is going on in my life that needs a little shaking up. Right? What's getting too stale that needs to be kind of jolted back to life. And that's what he's talking about here in this chapter. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and pull out the book and take a look at some of our favorite quotes from this chapter. Do you want to start, Chris?
Yeah. So I love how, and we hadn't touched on this yet. Launching beliefs, we hear that, and we think of such positive and high things. He said that launching can happen not only when we're feeling good and when we're on these highs of life, so to speak, but launching can happen when we're feeling low as well. Talks about a story of him and his grandma when he was sick. His grandparents, when they would give him a slice of toast and stuff like that. And he says that launching beliefs have this kind of shelf life, that when you are affected by someone else in this launching forward kind of way, it can last a lifetime.
Right.
And that's the beautiful thing about us being able to do this for other people is you don't know, by the way that you treat them and take genuine interest in other people, you don't know what kind of ways you may be launching them forward. And honestly, the things that they remember and do. And honestly, I think the most important times in which that will show up and how powerful these launching beliefs are is when we are at our lowest, is that they have a shelf life that's really going to last a lifetime. So it really has, we really have an opportunity to build other people up,
right.
And to use our launching beliefs, not only when we're feeling good, but also when we're not feeling as good.
Right.
Either.
Yeah. And doing this for other people, working with other people and hopefully giving other people launching beliefs of their own, help them down the line when they're working on their big ambitions or goals, and that helps you kind of push through when things get tough even, and he says, our goals shouldn't, if it's something big and worthy to go after, mm-hmm. it's gonna be something that's not immediate, and it's gonna be something that you're gonna have to make a little progress on one day at a time, little by little. Mm-hmm. He says you have to live a little, actually a lot, before your ambitions take shape and become fully formed in your heart. So it's going to take some time to get there, and that's the point. And it's all about making those little changes, those little quarter twists when they're needed as you move along.
Right. I think he asked a very important question in this chapter. He says just below where you just read, in order to get to the life that you want, we are going to have to live a little, as you said, or a lot. But you need to crack the code to this question here. And I think he does ask a lot of questions in this book. I think this is one that we need to remember. And it's, what do I do with the life I currently have, and what will I need to change? So evaluate your life. What are you doing with it? What you have right now in the place that you are, and what do you need to change? He says that there are some beautiful things you need to hold on to, even if life is a little tough right now. And then that's when we talked about your faith and your family and your
right.
friends being some of those. So there are some things
right.
we do need to hold on to, but what are the things that we need to
right.
change?
And he says some important things to look at when asking that question is maybe doing a quick audit of your friends list, your friends group, or even looking at your health, taking a look at your health, and those type of things, and he says, he has this paragraph here talking about your friends and your health, and how it's important to keep that, keep those solid and keep those together. Make sure that you are continually checking in with those things. You know what I mean?
Right.
Making sure you stay on top of it. And here's what I really liked from this chapter is that these are the things, talking about managing your friends and managing your health. These are things that people who get things done get done. Right? Those are important things that people who, again, are successful, like I said, I don't want to use the term successful in a way that, because success is different for everyone, but mm-hmm. the most successful people in life, they have a handle on their health, and they have a handle on their friends,
right.
and who they spend their time around.
And Bob Goff is not the only one saying this. You read a lot of different people. We reviewed that even in the 7 Habits book, which people can listen back to as well. For our first book in this podcast. And that's not, in my personal reading, out of all the books I've read, I've seen that time and time again. So that's something that successful people do have right, as you mentioned. I think another thing that successful people have right is they know what kind of changes to make. And he says that most of us are only a quarter twist away from getting it right. And it seems like a small increment, but it's probably all that you need. And so for a lot of us, it's just about taking a small step. And so we just need to be able to do that. And so then he asks the question, what's your quarter twist move? That's something that we have to take time to figure
and that's
out.
a good thing. Sometimes we think that our goals and ambitions and stuff are so far away.
Right.
And usually, it is a long time to get to, ones that are really worthy of our attention and effort. But sometimes, like you said here, they're not as far away as we think that they are. And it just takes a little bit of shaking up, a little bit of stirring the pot to, get those moving and get there quicker.
Right. Yeah. That's one reason. One reason I love Bob is because before writing any of his books, he's lived a lot of life. I mean, he's been a lot of different things, as he kind of speaks to in this chapter. He says that I used to spend my time doing things that worked, and now I'm trying to do things that last. I love that. He says that he's been he's had paper routes, he's painted houses, he's worked as a lawyer, a speaker, he started an airline, all these different things. And you look at that and you say, wow, he's such an exceptional and successful guy. But he says that doesn't make me exceptional. It actually just makes me really engaged. And so he says that you were meant to be too, as encouraging as he often is. He says, forget the flashy stuff. Be engaged with your faith, your family, your friends. Plenty, he says, can happen when you pay a little more attention to what you're engaged in. And so let's stay engaged. If you're trying to answer that question, what's your quarter twist move? Continue to stay engaged. Don't worry about the flashy stuff. Be real before you be anything else. Keep that at the center.
Right. Yeah. I think that's
be successful.
I think that's true. And you staying engaged like that in everything, you're gonna end up. I think you're just gonna end up doing more in life. You know what I mean? If we stay engaged, we're gonna end our lives and we're gonna be like, wow, look at all the things that we ended up having our hands in.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just for a season.
Right.
We were involved in this and that and all these things. And we didn't just coast through life. I think that's how, sometimes if we're not careful, we can coast through life, and then by the time we get to the end of it, we'll turn around and we'll say, I really didn't do much.
Right.
Because I just at that same job for 50 years, And not that that's a bad thing if that's what you really want to do. Mm-hmm. But staying engaged helps you stay aware of what it is that you want to do and gives you the energy and ability to make those pivots when you need to.
Right. Yeah. And I think the reason why whether you stay at a job for 50 years or you have your hands a little bit in everything, as long as you stay engaged is the important part. I think that's why I know I'm moving closer to the end. I don't want to skip ahead to anything if you have anything, but that's why I think he says here kind of towards the end that what we do isn't who we are. He reminds us of that, and that he says to identify with your family, your friends, and Jesus. If you load up your job with a sense of purpose, you are in some dangerous territory. And so that's why, no matter what engagement looks like in your life, mm-hmm. it doesn't matter what you do as long as you stay engaged. And I think we'll be surprised at what we accomplish as we stay engaged and what journey God leads us on as we stay engaged. I think we'll be surprised all that comes up. And when we do look back, as you said, we'll look back and be quite proud of everything that we've accomplished. Right.
It's true. And, he also mentions this, which I find kind of funny because of his generation, the generation that he's in. But he says, quit playing by the old rules, especially because of today's society. We have this freedom, this ability to change directions, course correct so much. We have such a great freedom to be able to do that. When he said, his parents, his parents' generation, they grew up thinking you had one job until you retired, and their parents did that too. Mm-hmm. And even people in Bob Goff's generation are doing that as well. You know what I mean? So he's kind of the first generation of people who could really pivot in a huge way during the course of their life and career. And it's available to us too. So, just like quit playing by the old rules, I just like that because we're not trapped in a box of picking this one thing for the rest of our lives and sticking to that. It may feel like it at times, and even if it's something, like I said, if it's something that you really enjoy and you're engaged in fully, you can stick with it. You know what I mean? Like, there's no reason to switch things up just because you feel like you have to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because then that's again just playing by someone else's rules as well. You know what I mean? Like, but I just like how he says, quit playing by the old rules. You know what I mean? Like, just because that's how it's always been doesn't necessarily mean that that's how it needs to be.
Yeah.
For everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think, there's, and in this chapter, and it's reflected in others as well, there's such freedom in our lives when we follow this principle. A lot of people would probably look at some of these things that Bob is writing and think, wow, he's really kind of shaking things up. But as I've been reading this book, really that's what I've been seeing is liberation after liberation after liberation. That, and I love how he encourages here, as you said, that, this is what our parents and our grandparents ended up doing, but this is a new day, in a lot of circles where you hear a lot of complaints about younger people, being a younger person that can hurt sometimes, hearing kind of how some of our youth and people in their 20s and maybe early 30s are kind of shaking things up quite a bit. But I love how he encourages that and then reminds us of where our identity is found. So there's a lot of freedom there.
Yeah. It's a good chapter. I think a lot of these things are very similar in nature, the things that he talks about, the different ideas that he bounces around on throughout these chapters. But I think they're closely related, and they're very intentionally said because they're such important points that need to be hit home more than once even. Right. And so this is just another reminder that we're not trapped inside this kind of artificial box that we've created for ourselves. And we have the ability to, first off, make a change. We have the ability to make a change. Second off, we should, what I mean? In order to move things down the road, we got to keep things fresh, and we can't get stuck in old habits and old routines when there needs to be something new and fresh brought to the table.
Right. Yeah. Can I read the last sentence of the chapter? He always has great such last sentences. I feel like we always end this way. He says that you can't change what happened yesterday or 5 minutes ago, but tomorrow is all yours. It's up to you how to decide what happens next. Always a great last liner for his chapters, and also super encouraging at the same time. So that's chapter 20.
Chapter 20. Tomorrow is chapter 21, Be a Quitter. That's tomorrow's chapter. But if you enjoyed this chapter and you have any thoughts that you'd like to add to this chapter that we just read and we just talked about, feel free to reach out to us at readtoknowpod on any social platform, and readtoknowpod@gmail.com. You can email us there as well. We would appreciate you jumping in and giving us your thoughts on this chapter.
Yeah, we sure would. And also you can leave a review as well on Apple Podcasts and a rating. I have seen that we do have a couple more ratings. We went from 1, which was mine, to like 8. So we appreciate those ratings, which honestly that could be mine and then your parents and then my parents and a couple other people we know, who knows. But we appreciate you listening. And you could also leave us a review, and if you copy and paste or shoot that to us at that email you just mentioned, then we'll share that on the show, whether it's good or bad. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks again for listening. We appreciate it. And we'll see you tomorrow for chapter 21.